Hello there! This is still Jennel Barzo for another talk. This will be entitled COVID-19 SARS-CoV-2 Pandemic and the New Normal: Perceptions, Arguments, and Thoughts. A quick check on the possible whereabouts of the situations led by this year's pandemic vis-à-vis school-related operations and processes. So this research has been conducted like post-mid of April this year. Now, as to the flow summary of this presentation, I will be mentioning about the background of the research problem, drafting of the research design, conduct of the survey, treatment and analysis of gathered data, including which the interpretation, conclusion, as well as the presentation and recommendation. For the background of the research problem, relevant reasons have underlying implications to how operations in our day-to-day living will have been affected and done due to this inexplicably inevitable virus. There are two perspectives for this for the conduct of this research: general and personal. General perspective: it is a pandemic. It usually affects almost every single activity of almost every working and non-working, public and private, teaching and learning, providing and needing person throughout the globe. Thirdly, it is novel, unprecedentedly challenging, and the reason of emergence is still not clear. On a personal note, I love participating to moments of listening the people around, their thoughts, ways of doing, perspectives, principles, and best practices. I admire the efforts of our frontline personnel. And lastly, I honor and highly regard the contribution of the agricultural sector in the making in making to suscitate the economic needs in these crises. For the drafting of the research design, working in an online platform means identifying processes that are conveniently done with the environment, instrument, and respondents respectively. Research environment. So the research has been conducted in Lok Mandawi City, that is still now in a GCQ status, where UCLM, the largest school in the barangay, situates. Research respondents, mainly in the Region 7 area that covers Cebu, Negros Occidental and Oriental, some students and employees as well. Research instrument, Google form-based survey that defines 50 five-range level of agreeability questions on top of the respondent's profile. Conduct of the survey this time. Making use of the availability of Google Forms would mean convenience and wider sources of thoughts, perspectives, and viewpoints from different individuals. So the questionnaire has been divided into subsections, namely profile of the respondent, COVID-19 pandemic perceptions, third, COVID-19 causal to social distancing perceptions, fourth, COVID-19 affecting fields of disciplines perceptions, fifth, COVID-19 changing ways of doing in schools perceptions, and lastly, activities during and after COVID-19. Now let me go to results and discussions. This is on the respondent's profile. On summary of professions, there are 43 students, or that's roughly 38% of the respondents. There is 65, or that's 58% who are employed. There's 1% self-employed, and there's 3% others. These somehow belong to those who are probably unemployed. Simple notes and discussions. A few inches above majority are employed respondents. Significant number of students also participated. Now let's go to the employment details of those who are employed respondents. 51 of them, or that 78%, came from private institutions and entities. And the rest of the 22% are government employees. Simple notes and discussions. Private employees, such as those in the academia and industry that are related to IT sectors, make largely marginal respondents as that from the government. This is way reasonable because the government employees are way on the front line working right at this very moment in time. Now we will go with employment, those with or those who are at their work from home status or status. 41 or that's 63% of them are in a work from home status and 37% are not. Simple notes and discussions. Widely, responding employees are now on their work from home status since the start of the lockdowns and community quarantines. Student details this time. There are 11 or there are 5% grade 11. There are 35% senior high school graduates, that's 15 of them. And there's 60% or 26 college students who participated in this survey. Simple notes and discussions. Majority of the responding students is on their college level, with a slight remaining from the senior high school who had just graduated and some ongoing grade 12s. Age distribution details of the respondents. Age group A is ranging between 17 to 24 years old, that's 65% of the total respondents. Age group B, that's between 25 to 32 years old, that's 21% of the population. There's 33 to 40 years old, that makes 7%. There's 41 to 48 years old, that's 3%. And lastly, there's 49 to 56-year-old age combination, that's 4% of the population. Simple notes and discussions. Age group A, that's ranging between 17 to 24 years old, makes 65% of the total responses, followed by age group B, 21%, with ages ranging from 25 to 32. So this is way understandable because 17 to 32 are the majority of the working group nowadays. Now, other notes and discussions. Respondents, majority are males, that's 62 or 55% of them, and with 44 females, that's 39%, and 6 who preferred not to say. Largely dominant number, that's 92% of the total respondents, come from Region 7, Central Visayas, and the remaining from Region 8, that's Eastern Visayas, NCR, Ilocos, Davao, Caraga, and one from Hong Kong. Now let us talk about the perceptions on the COVID-19 pandemic. So respondents agreed by model response on the following. COVID-19 is something that is expected to be worse since end of December last 2019. That's by 78% agreed. Second, COVID-19 is a bioweapon designed in a laboratory. That's agreed by 86%. Third, COVID-19 is man-made and is intentionally made to depopulate. That's by 84% agreed. COVID-19 is linked to a depopulation conspiracy as it targets the elderly as the most vulnerable. That's by 85%. Also, respondents agreed still that COVID-19 is a pandemic that will last for months. That's by 91%. 89% agreed that COVID-19 as a pandemic, based on actual cases of having tested positive and deaths, is uncontrollable without having a vaccine. Then, by 79% agreed, COVID-19 proven vaccine, if there would be any, has already been available but is still not made publicized yet. Also then, COVID-19 vaccine is likely to be created before the year ends. That's agreed by 80% of them. COVID-19 would be developed vaccine will immune people through lifetime. That's agreed by 81% of the respondents. There's the statement that is disagreed by the respondents. Based on my personal assessment, COVID-19 came from nature and or its wildlife. That's disagreed by 69% of them. Now let's talk about perceptions on COVID-19, causal to social distance. Respondents agreed on the following. COVID-19 will bring social distancing a new normal in all forms of mass gathering in spans of months or years only. That's by 89%. 88% agreed that COVID-19 causal to social distancing will change the way people will work, exercise, socialize, shop, manage health, educate children, take care of family members in spans of months or years only. Also then, These same respondents agreed that COVID-19 causal to social distancing will change the way people will work, exercise, socialize, shop, manage health, educate children, take care of family members through lifetime. That's by 66%. Then, social distancing in mass gatherings will affect mostly in marketplaces. That's 94% agreed. Social distancing in mass gatherings will affect mostly in churches or congregations. That's 95% agreed. Also, social distancing in mass gatherings will affect mostly in employment or the workforce. That's agreed by 94%. Social distancing in mass gatherings will affect mostly in production and or manufacturing. That's 91% agreed. Social distancing in mass gatherings will affect mostly in businesses and their operations in all forms. That's 96% agreed. Same respondents agreed that social distancing in mass gatherings will affect mostly in schools or educational institutions. That's 97% agreed. And these respondents disagreed that COVID-19 will bring social distancing a new normal in all forms of mass gathering through lifetime. That's 63% disagreed. Now, on another section, it's entitled Perceptions on COVID-19 Affecting Fields of Disciplines. Respondents agreed that, as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect transportation in all modes. That's by 95%. 97% agreed as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect venue setups in trainings, symposia, fora, or workshops. 95% agreed that as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect research and development. 89% agreed that as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect the world of print and mass media as well as entertainment. In another note, these respondents agreed by 96% that as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect primary and basic education. Also, 96% agreed that as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect malls, that is, shopping malls and movie theaters particularly. As to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect reunions and or get-togethers, that's by 91%. 92% agreed that as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect celebrations, that is, birthdays or anniversaries to name. Also then, respondents agreed on same statements as well. As to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect community or group engagements, that is, political rallies, parties in all form, or concerts. That's by 93%. 95% agreed that as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect non-profit or non-government organizations' programs. Examples are tutorials, immersion, and the like. Now, perceptions on COVID-19 changing ways of doings in schools. So, respondents agreed on the following. First, COVID-19 will definitely change at least 50% of the doings in schools. It's 94% agreed. COVID-19 will enforce school to implement distance learning or online classes. That's 92% agreed, and that's way evident today. COVID-19 will create new ways of delivering the instructions to students or learners. That's 96% agreed. Fourthly, respondents agreed that COVID-19 will challenge not just students but teachers and administrators in the next months or school and or academic years to come. That's 96% agreed. COVID-19 will somehow change classroom setups. That's 96% agreed. COVID-19 will encourage homeschooling in the initial phase but not through lifetime. That's 92% agreed. Still, these respondents agreed that COVID-19 will bring new subjects pertaining to developing maturity and readiness and life skills amidst pandemics. It's 97% agreed. COVID-19 will change ways of doing research, practical hands-on, and performance activities and exercises to students or learners. That's 96% agreed. Ninth, COVID-19 will change the grading system and assessment to academic awards qualifications. That's 88% agreed. Also, Respondents agreed that COVID-19 will somehow eliminate marks of failing, but instead not yet competent. That's 84% agreed. The last section was focused on activities during and after COVID-19. Respondents agreed on the following. During this pandemic or quarantine period, I do eating or sleeping most of the time. That's 87% agreed. During this pandemic, I do acts of kindness as I am involved in helping or supporting the frontliners or the backliners directly and indirectly both. That's 81% agreed. Thirdly, during this pandemic, I do involve activities with gadgets or technology and the internet. That's 94% agreed. As I may continue, these respondents agreed by 79% that during this pandemic, I do things that I usually do not do before COVID-19. During this pandemic, I do realize important, relevant, or practical things to better my life after situations become well. That's 95% agreed. After this pandemic or quarantine period, I will first have moments with family. That's 97% agreed. Seventh, after this pandemic, I will go to the church or community group to give thanks and gratitude to the Almighty Father. That's 91% agreed. Also, these respondents agree that after this pandemic, I will organize or involve in an activity of friends to enjoy and celebrate. That's 84% agreed. Another thing, these respondents agreed by 87% that after this pandemic, I will ride or travel to somewhere to check and visit something or someone. And 10th, after this pandemic, I will go to a mall for a makeover or haircut or any treat to celebrate. That's 76% agree. Now, these are some of the notes or thoughts that are coming from the respondents when asked about what are their opinions, what are their advices as to how they are feeling or probably way of expressing to the situations that are currently brought by this pandemic. First, a 22-year-old privately employed male described it as punishment. On another note, there's this 36-year-old female, this is a privately employed female, who defines it to be scary. That's from a 36-year-old or a 36-year-old female. New normal is brought. That's coming from a 38-year-old privately employed female from Cebu. And there's one comment that says it's life-changing. This came from a 54-year-old government-employed male from Leyte. This is probably the way to decrease the population. My opinion, though, this comes from a senior high school student, female, who is 18 years old. Thus, I'll survive no matter what will happen. That's coming from a male college student who is 20 years old. Therefore, I hope this pandemic will end soon. Keep praying for God is hearing us. That's coming from a 22-year-old unemployed female. And don't be afraid, for God is with us. That's coming from an 18-year-old male college student. Also, family bonding is strengthened. This is a comment coming from a government employee, a DepEd principal who is 49 years old. Well, all things happen for a reason. That's from a 30-year-old female who is coming from Agusan del Norte. But never lose hope or never lose faith then. That's coming from an employee, a male employee, 18 years old, who is now in a work from home since mid-March. For this too shall pass. That's coming from an employee, a software developer, male from Cebu. It made people realize that we can live simply by attending only to our basic needs, and that we are just dots in this world, that indeed only God is in control of everything. That's from a government employee, female, 52 years old from Bohol. The earthly things that we worship has actually no value. Things we used to believe and say that we cannot do at home can actually be done at home. Staying at home gave us more time with family and God. Because of this pandemic, I have valued my faith in God and my family more than ever. That's coming from a female government employee of Tesla 7. Surely then, God will make a way. That's coming from a privately employed male who is a graduate of Masters in Information Technology. Now let's go to the highlights and summary of results. So now we can say that 6 out of 10 disagreed on the following statements. So there are only 2 statements that are disagreed by these respondents. First, based on personal assessment, COVID-19 came from nature and or its wildlife. So majority of these respondents are actually not believing to this statement. Hence, they might probably be having some sources that surely prove they do not certainly come from nature. COVID-19 will bring social distancing a new normal in all forms of mass gatherings through lifetime. So still 6 out of 10 of them did not believe to this because for them there's always this is just something and allowing that will probably then be ended soon in God's time, obviously. So simple notes and discussions. 6 out of 10 must have other beliefs or may still be out of priority to knowing the real cause of the pandemic that they certainly assume that is not coming from nature and all its wildlife. So now we go to the top 10 most agreed or strongly agreed statements of the respondents. So this is a way refresher to what we have had mentioned or what I had mentioned a moment ago. 9 out of 10 strongly agreed that social distancing in mass gatherings will affect mostly in schools or educational institutions. So this is the strongly agreed by majority of them. Now, simple notes and discussions. Schools, private and public both, are the primary sources of vulnerable people to name, such as different age groups are present and individuals come from different modes of transportation. Now we go to the second strongly agreed statement. Now, 9 out of 10 of these respondents strongly agreed that as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect venue setups in trainings, symposia, fora, or workshops. Simple notes and discussions. Largely gathered events must be adjusted in the attendees' arrangements as the pandemic may strongly affect. Strategizing with many sessions then is a possible resort. We now go to the third. 9 out of 10 still of these respondents strongly agreed that COVID-19 will bring new subjects pertaining to developing maturity and readiness and life skills amidst pandemics. Simple notes and discussions. Real-life applications have been the fundamental and foundational objectives in education. Thus, implementing new subjects would mean resilience and empathy among learners. Fourthly, 9 out of 10 of these respondents strongly agreed that after this pandemic or quarantine period, they will first have moments with family. Simple notes and discussions. Family is the basic unit of the community. Strengthened by being family-oriented, these too shall pass with the support coming from the best people. There's no place like home with a family. Fifth, these respondents strongly agreed that social distancing in mass gatherings will affect mostly in businesses and their operations in all forms. Simple notes and discussions. ACQ, GCQ, and all with Qs certainly allow needs for physiological existence, enabling business services to proceed into operations. Now, extra precautions may be intricately established among them. Sixthly, 9 out of 10 still strongly agreed that, as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect primary and basic education. Simple notes and discussions. Notwithstanding tertiary or the college level, surely the pandemic will have direct effects to the primary and basic educations. Continued childhood developments must be guided with parents. Seventh, still 9 out of 10 of these respondents strongly agreed that COVID-19 will challenge not just students, but teachers and administrators in the next months or school and or academic years to come. Simple notes and discussions. Evidently, schools are much adept to working online or flexible learning strategies for the openings to come. Thus, new modalities will have been implemented, tested, and delivered to learners. Eighth, still 9 out of 10 of these respondents strongly agreed that COVID-19 will change ways of doing research, practical hands-on and performance activities, and exercises to students or learners. Simple notes and discussions. Almost every task related to instruction will have been affected. This means a bucket list of preps will give some time to hit cognitive developments to deliver school-based pedagogies to homes. Ninth, 9 out of 10 strongly agree that as to a new normal, COVID-19 will affect malls, that is, shopping malls or movie theaters in particular. Simple notes and discussions. Malls of different types guarantee continued shopping services. Unfortunately, movie theaters to customers. Now, with the new normal, they will have to gradually migrate to new policies. 10th, 9 out of 10 strongly agreed that COVID-19 will create new ways of delivering instructions to students or learners. Simple notes and discussions. Asynchronous, synchronous, remote, online, distance, flexible. Some of the trending terms to educators now. No student left behind would mean considering every possible way. And lastly, the statement make still on the top, which are strongly agreed by the respondents, that COVID-19 will somehow change classroom setups. For the simple notes and discussions, distance, online, blended. All would mean no more full-time hours of studying, participating, or being at school at the very least. A classroom has to evolve in the technological way possible. Recommendations. So respondents must agree presumably that this pandemic has and will continually cause and bring different changes to just how we do and make things in every single way. From the way we learn at school, to the way we coexist and socialize, that's communication. The way we reach and arrive to and from places, that's transportation. The way we work and operate, that's business and employment. The way we enjoy and make leisure, that's vacation. The way we create moments and Thanksgiving, that's church and congregations. To lastly and quasi, the way we live and survive physiologically and mentally, that's existence. Now, in personal notes from the author of this work, so I've been into constructing my own ways of my own perceptions, my own generalizations as to how the events have brought me stuff then. Everything happens for a reason. Next, man is a rational, wise being limited with capacities to know and understand what's that of God's. Empathy it must be than any form of knowledge. How, not what. Why, not how. Now, let me give you my way of presenting how important it is to do research or search to live. Search to find to understand, understand to analyze, analyze to learn, learn to know to listen, listen to empathize, empathize to discern, and discern to live. This is Jennel Barzo, and keep safe, everybody. God bless you and stay blessed.